Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. Uh, this is, a series of webinars that we've been conducting since the lockdown started, and essentially the idea is basically to not lock down the spirit of learning. However, today's webinar is a very specific webinar there. We are going to talk about uh, a very unique phenomena that is occurring in the industrial sector these days, which is basically about shifting paradigms in supply chain and digitalization. We have all heard a lot about supply chains during pandemic times, and our own industrial ventures, we have heard about it. Today, along with Kognoz, we have a partner with us, Adexa. We will describe about Adexa in a bit. We have somebody from Adexa who has been instrumental in making this change happen across the organization. A quick view about the agenda. We will quickly talk about us and Adexa, like I've just mentioned. Then we will get into the core of this webinar, which is shifting paradigms in supply chain, what is happening in the world, how supply chains are evolving. And the third point is about technology, how technology is, assisting, supporting, and driving this evolution, which is happening, and we are all witnessing it in some shape and form. There are certain tools that we will be talking about, and then implementation, how we can bring about change in the supply chain with the help of a unique implementation methodology. We would also be talking about few practical cases here, live cases, where we have worked on these scenarios, and then question and answers. Just just setting up the rules. Um, you would be all on mute. However, you can post your questions into Q&A box or Q&A tab visible in your window, team window. We will be taking questions, either at the end of a session. So there are 4 sessions, if you can see, and we will be taking it towards the end of the session, or we can take it in between. I mean, we would be managing those questions as and when they come. So please keep posting your questions. In any case, if we miss one question during the session, we'll anyway have a detailed Q&A session towards the end of the this webinar. And if at all we missed anything that we can't answer you during this webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. You all know us today. You will know Adexa, and Emre, who is the Adexa Spock with us. You can reach out to any one of us. So I hope that will help us and help as you. Here I will hand it over to Manish, who is the founding director of Kognoz. I would request him to introduce himself, our partner from Emre. I will quickly introduce myself given this opportunity. I have overall 15 years of experience across operations and supply chain functions. Largely into consulting, a bit into industry as well. I have been, involved into large-scale business transformation initiatives, leveraging various methodology, including Lean, TPM, Six Sigma, and you name it. I have been associated with PwC, Aisher, and Everest Group in the past. Now I will hand it over to Manish. Manish, over to you, because both of you and Emre has so much diverse experience that it is difficult for me to explain that. So I will leave that task to you.
Thank you, Prabhat. My name is Manish Prasad. I'm the founding director of Kognoz Research and Consulting. We formed this company 2 years ago, although our consulting practices go much before that time. When we started this consulting practice 2 years ago, we had a very different thing in our mind. We want to create a consulting service with a difference. So we wanted to really add value to the customer, deep research-based solutions, collaboration with partners. My own background is about 34, 35 years in the industry, out of which 25 years I have been holding the executive responsibilities in various companies, and mostly in the multinational companies. I have been going across the globe, mostly the Asia Pacific region, because my last job before I moved finally into my consulting, I was running the Asia Pacific operations for ESAB, which is a welding company. I have deep experience in the implementation of lean manufacturing techniques, in service sectors, and lean in healthcare sectors. So I have got very deep understanding and knowledge of applying lean everywhere, I will say. And that is the foundation for our business practices as well. Today we have got a partner, Emre. Emre is representing Adexa, and he also brings a very experience with him, 20 plus years. And I will request Emre to introduce himself. I think I will not be able to do justice to him. I will only deep experiences, but maybe just say a few words about yourself, please.
Right. Thank you for the introduction, Prabhat and Manish. As Manish mentioned, I've been working with Adexa for a long time, actually 20 plus years now. Started also more on consulting side initially, implementing supply chain solutions for different industries from high tech, semicon to automotive to CPG, food and beverage. And was fortunate to actually run these projects in different regions, North America as well as Europe, even Japan. Out of a couple experiences or regions I had implemented solutions, but for the last 5+ years now, I've been managing more the operations for Adexa in the so-called Europe, Middle East and Africa region, as well as India. So hopefully today we'll be able to give you guys some background on Adexa, as well as have some interactive discussions with you on the changes happening in the supply chain, as well as supply chain technology. Prem.
Okay, thank you, Emre. And just a couple of more slides from me before I really hand over to Emre to talk about details of today's webinar. So a little bit about Kognoz, as I have said. So we have got some partners. So Adexa is the #1 for us. You can see on the side. So there is a list of partnership. I've just put down 4 here. Adexa is a supply chain solution partner for us. Cognitive Talent Solution is the another partner, again coming from USA, and they are on the network analysis part. We have got a sum total, which is human resource management software, HRM, and again a Skillsoft company coming from US. And Talent Click is a psychometric assessment company out of Canada. We also have got partners in Philippines, HRTX. We also have got a partner in India for implementing Industry 4.0. So that is about what we do in Kognoz. We have got 4 practices. We have got a business transformation services. We have got a people or the HR side transformation services. We have got talent solutions, which is basically where the sum total actually fits in. So we have got a lot of digital solutions and the products in that range where we are building up on the sum total experience and some very good products on the learning experiences, micro learnings. And watch out for the space. We will be soon announcing some new product launch there. And finally, the Learning Academy, which is the host for today's webinar as well. So those are the 4 services which about employees who are working right now in Kognoz, but we have got a good desire to really add value. So we have got a presence in India, we have got presence in Malaysia, Philippines, and we have got clients in Saudi Arabia and UAE. So that is where is our footprint right now is. So moving on to today's solution, what we are talking about is we call it Lean Supply Chain 4.0. So this is something which is 4.0, as you can understand, it is coming from Industry 4.0. So that is where we are saying lean supply chain, and there are 3 elements we are talking here. One is a physical material flow, which is the which we understand supply chain. But then the physical material flow is subordinated to the information flow. How good is the information? How accurate? How granular is the information? That is very important. And then finally, the decision making. There are various decision making points. and that decision making is the one which directs the flow. So from the classical lean theory, we understand when the material flow is happening, there are 7 types of waste, where we apply the lean thinking principles and we take out those waste. Similarly, on the information flow or the decision making processes, there are much higher level of waste which are there. When you don't really use the data correctly, when you don't use complete data, or you are not able to make a logical outcome or the analysis from that. So it is about a journey from data to information, information to knowledge, knowledge to wisdom. So that is the entire journey which we do. So what we are doing is we are not today focusing on the physical material flow in the supply chain, because that we have covered in previous webinars when we have done about more detail about the lean. Today we will be more focusing about the flow of information and the decision, and that is where the Adexa actually fits in. Now, before I move and hand over to Emre, I just want to mention one thing. With our experience, and I'm sure all of you also must have had experience of implementing ERP solutions in your organization. Implementing ERP does not transform the organization. I think that experience is very clear, because you have got some fundamental cultures, you have got fundamental capabilities, you have got a processes, the legacy process is what we call. If those are not aligned to the new technology solutions, things will not happen. So I'll just give an example. I play golf, not a very good golfer for that matter. But if I slice a ball out into the jungle, and if I think that, I can just buy a new set of clubs and actually hit a better, what will happen is my ball will go further 10 yards into the jungle. It is not going to go straight for sure, because my fundamental body rhythm, my swing, my techniques are faulty. So it is the same thing for us. When we go for a supply chain transformation, there is a physical capability part, culture part, the paradigms, current paradigms, which we need to change, and then adopt the tools, which is a very high power tool, digital tools which are available, which is the Adexa today. So only 2 things will match when you have got both the parts correct. That means you have got your current capabilities, your current processes, and you have got a complete alignment of that. We'll talk about more during the implementation part of this. So Emre, please introduce the Adexa and the theme for today.
Thank you for that. Let me just share my screen.
It's visible.
Okay. Oops. Otherwise, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Let me just give presentation mode. Okay. Well, again, thank you for the intro. I'll just, for the ones that who haven't heard Adexa before, just a couple minutes about Adexa. We've been on the market actually in terms of the supply chain planning solutions since more than 26 years now, with a full focus on advanced enterprise planning solutions. We didn't have any, or we didn't build any ERP solutions or anything like that, but just focusing on all our R&D on planning solutions. We work with hundreds of mostly Fortune class and mid-tier customers and thousands of global users across the globe. Companies founded in US and then expanded to different regions like Asia Pacific, as well as Europe. And we are very proud to be also one of the most visionary companies picked by Gartner on their latest sales and operations Magic Quadrant, basically. So I think we are happy to be recognized in that sense as well. And some of the topics we're going to cover today will be around that. Okay, in terms of shifting paradigms, and as I mentioned at the beginning of my intro, I've been implementing these type of solutions and planning solutions and talking to different companies in different industries and regions for quite a while. And when I look back 20 years ago, when we had our initial discussions with customers about the challenges on their supply chain and mapped out, from my consulting days as well, in terms of mapping out their supply chain network and the challenges they have. It was more of a linear supply chain. You know, they will have a few suppliers, fairly local. You know, maybe manufacturing sites, but maybe one or two. Their products will be single source, not a too complicated distribution center, and then reaching their consumers. Those days at this point in time are gone. You know, you see now much more interconnected enterprise and a supply chain. If we look at talk to even for customers we have that are don't have their own manufacturing piece and sites and relying on contract manufacturers, you know, you still need to manage those capacities outside of your organization. You need to be able to decide, you know, if you want your contract manufacturers to ship directly to your customers or to one of your regional DCs. So the complexity definitely grew. It's the data involved is much more complicated, and the supply chain doesn't look the same like 20 years ago. So in this case, then the companies need to be able to respond to and be basically faster. You know, we have giants like Amazon who got the concept of same day delivery. You know, on the consumer facing businesses, we need to be more flexible in terms of addressing to the changes in the supply chain, because your supply chain is not rigid anymore. And in the past, you would be, you know, maybe you were only focus on your global markets or global customers, but sorry, on the local markets. But today, you have some level of global connections everywhere on your supply chain. So if it's on the supplier side or if in your on your customer side, there's some global dependency of your supply chain that we also came to see also with the whole COVID situation across the globe. So we need to be also more granular, accurate, and efficient. So how? So in that sense, there is this, and that also triggered a lot. If you think about the discussions going on in the boardrooms today, you will hear everyone mentioning about digitalization, digital transformation projects, and that's not just obviously for supply chain, but that also affects the supply chain operations today as well. So one quote I like to use is from Gartner that says in 2 to 5 years, a quarter of companies plan to be doing some autonomous planning, and over the same period, 97% of companies plan to have some form of automation in their supply chain decision making. So this is the future of supply chain operations. You know, companies are moving how, depending on these, you know, areas, how they can automate their solutions. That's definitely in the process with as per the Gartner quote. But also they're looking to move to autonomous planning, meaning, you know, how can we support the solution decision making with AI and machine learning type of technology. So now this is a good point. I like to ask the audience if or to get to know each other a little bit better. If you are planning to, or if you are working on today on a digital transformation project, also covering your supply chain operations. So please, I think, Prabhat, we agreed to use the chat box, right?
Yeah, the chat box as well as the Q&A. I mean, they can use anyone.
Oh, sorry, the Q&A, right. So if you have, so I just want to give you like a little bit time and consider this question, and we'll get back to it based on your feedback. But yeah, please just give us some indication if you are working on today on a digital transformation project covering also your supply chain operations as well, or you're working on it, or you are planning to do so. That will give us a some sense also on the audience. Good. And while you are entering your feedback, I have a couple more slides on this. Basically, again, some of you guys maybe not familiar with what I mean with the supply chain maturity on that slide. So with supply chain maturity, we are mentioning, or we are using the framework by Gartner that divides into 5 levels of maturity. This level 1 maturity, let me maybe just spend a minute on what this means. It's a very quick and high level. There's definitely quite a literature on it on Gartner website, but the idea is level 1 is your typical, very early stage planning organizations who are relying mainly on their spreadsheets or ERP for planning parts of their supply chain operation. As you go to level 2, you'll see that they're covering probably most of their organization in terms of planning, using again tools like spreadsheets, etc. But the idea is then all these plannings are happening isolated in different areas within the organization, not necessarily connected. As you get to level 3 maturity, you are looking for companies that understand that connectivity, the importance of that connectivity. They may be still, using their spreadsheets, ERP solutions, and as they get to this one, they start to see the limitation of that spreadsheets and manual processes they are doing to be, as they try to run, for example, a connected process like demand planning within their organization, starting from capturing feedback from sales to central planning reviews to facilitating so-called S&OP meetings. And the idea with level 4 and 5 are level 4, then your supply chain is extended, not just your organization, but you recognize you need to be able to collaborate and plan together with your suppliers. And I'll give you an example on that one as well, because that happens a lot in terms of even on smaller companies who work with contract manufacturers. Your contract manufacturer will come back to you and you need to collaborate in terms of, okay, I promise you so many products, but I have constraints. So tell me, from this product range, I can do 1,000 products this week for you, but only 600 of this SKU maximum, or 400 of this SKU, or 500 of this. Tell me which ones do you want me to produce. So there is that kind of a collaboration between your suppliers as well as your customers. Like if you are using channels like Amazon or others, they are sharing with their vendors the different the forecast, their long-term intentions, what they think they can sell for you. So that kind of collaboration is included then into the planning. And with level 5 is the idea that you are successful in automating a number or most of those processes and planning activities within your organization, and also started to automate some of those functions in terms of where AI and machine learning solutions are supporting you in your decision making aligned with the processes. And if you look at the picture, you can see, and this is a not necessarily India specific survey per se, but it's a global survey conducted by Gartner. And as you can see, most of the maturity, most of the correspondence maturity level are between level 1 and 3. So the shift to level 4 and 5 is still happening. And the jump, and as we will hopefully highlight, is the jump to go to the next level is not something you can manage with your spreadsheets and ERP planning that you have today. So that's why the technology is needed to help the companies to get those levels.
Manish, sorry, Amre, just one point here. Manish, what do you think? I mean, like Amre was saying, this survey is a global survey, but Manish, in your view, what do you think most of the Indian companies, where would they lie in terms of supply chain maturity? Any thought on that? Amre, if you have interacted with any companies in India, what is your take on that as well?
So, Prabhat, wherever I have worked in India as well as in the other Asian countries, I will say that this survey will be pretty much applicable to India. We will be mostly, the clients in India will be in level 2 and level 3 in between, and more or less similar distribution, I will say. Very seldom you will find, so the 4 and 5 will be really very, very rare in this geography. Mostly level 2 and 3.
Okay. Yeah. Amre, your view, apart from say European and American markets, say what about China and Southeast Asian market? Any thought on that?
Right. I think our experience is it's industry specific. This is I see if we look at, for example, high tech markets and so on, there's more. This distribution will be shifted towards more this part of it. Because of the pressure they have in terms of competition and the fastest of that type of business. If you look at the more traditional businesses or like even CPG, etc., you will see them somewhere more on this 2-3 level. Definitely, spreadsheets are still the king. The main, let's say, main tool used by the companies for planning today. That's, I think, is the fact. Okay. Do we have any indication on from feedback that we can share? Or
Ibrahim, I am not able to see anything here in the conversation and in the mode. Ibrahim, were you able to see anything? Maybe we can.
No, there are no questions.
Yeah, no questions. So I think we can move ahead.
Also no feedback on digitalization project.
No, not
the audience.
Not yet.
Okay, so sounds like everybody is interested to learn more, but haven't planned to start or embark the journey yet. Which is good. That's good. All right. So I have one more slide on the shift that just I'll which is important, again, summarizing some of the topics we already mentioned. So there is this shift in terms of moving to a digitalization, automation, and optimization of your supply chain operations. So how does that shift manifest itself? So what is so if we start from process point of view, there's very structured processes, very well-known processes like sales and operations planning. It's been around for a number of decades now, but it also has its own drawbacks. It's looking very bucketed, high-level processes, and it doesn't, at the end you have operating at that high level, you have a demand picture that looks okay, and then you can have a supply picture that meets that demand, and everything is rosy and good. The problem is once the orders start to come in, you will see the mismatch, and when the mix doesn't fit because you're not granular enough, you're not covering your order level planning, then at the end, maybe you have a perfect matching demand and supply matching plan in the S&OP level, but you're struggling how to fulfill your orders. So our view is and this is supported by Gartner as well, is an S&OP needs to be supported or complemented with so-called sales and operation execution that covers the detailed order level planning for the horizons like 0 to 3 months level, know the true root causality of issues on your supply chain, and have a highly accurate and executable plan. So not something that something that your team can really execute on. How do you achieve that? Definitely, on that sense, you have see also a big move from this so-called spreadsheet modeling to a more of a digital twin representation of your supply chain, which is a true and detailed representation of it. And that allows you then also move from this manual planning to a more automated and algorithmic planning. And when I say manual planning, it's not necessarily we're not talking about just spreadsheets and ERP solutions per se, but also some early APS solutions you may have that are that don't have the accuracy. So what happens is your whatever the solution you are running, it creates a plan, but your planners spend time just manually updating those plans because they don't have that tool or solution doesn't have a real good representation of your supply chain and the challenges you have, and it's in a way it's locked in the heads of your planners, and they are the one deciding what to plan and manually creating those plans. So the move is to get to a automated algorithmic planning, which is close to real time, very fast, and that will enable you also, moving from a response planning to a being reactive to issues, being more of a predictive planning, see where this supply or capacity constraints could happen, and prescribe different solutions to address them. Again, it's instead of constantly replanning, it's more of an event-driven planning. And to summarize, maybe also something that I mentioned at the beginning, we are not looking anymore only being able to model and plan locally with local data, but your end-to-end supply chain. As I mentioned with the example of the contract manufacturers, you need to understand the capacity constraints or the issues they can have. I was just talking to a little bit of a high-tech toy manufacturing company, also owned by an Indian company actually, and they don't have manufacturing, but they work with a lot of contract manufacturers. And if it's not, the problem may not be even with the contract manufacturer and their assembly lines, it could be a component that's needed. And if that component doesn't come through, then they need to make a decision which products they ask to their customers, saying, so the contract manufacturer asks to our customer saying, asking like, which SKU do you want me to produce? Because I have only so much component at hand. So the world is not anymore locked into your four walls and your distribution centers or your plants or manufacturing, or it is definitely much more involved and requiring much more collaboration and visibility. Good. I think this was the intro I had in terms of the changes. I think that gives a good overview. I have a couple slides on the changes on the technology side. This is maybe also a good point in case there are any questions that we can address. Let us know. Prabhat, Ibrahim.
Yeah, I am checking that. Nothing which I can see. I'll just check with Ibrahim if he can see that, because not visible in my case.
No, Prabhat, there's no questions.
Okay.
All right. All right. We have a shy crowd today, so.
Yeah.
Good. I think this was the intro I had in terms of the changes on the technology side. This is maybe also a good point in case there are any questions that we can address. Let us know. Prabhat, Ibrahim.
No questions.
Okay. Yeah.
Or maybe Emre, you are so good and you're so clear. No questions.
No question.
Yeah, that will be first. All right, very good.
Okay.
All right. Anyways, and there are questions, please stop us. So align with the evolution in the supply chain of our customers. There is also, to address these changes, there is also evolution on the solutions, and we use, maybe, we use a lot this move from sales and operation to sales and operation execution, because it's something that's very common through processes across industries and companies. But if we take that as an example, the move today is, and in the past, you could run your supply chain or your planning with some high-level rough cut planning, which may be on a bucket-based planning. You have your buckets of months, or maybe if you go detail, maybe weeks. You may run maybe a constrained MRP type of solution, and you can say, hey, I am running my ERP system that gives me a good MRP, but with some level of constraints modeled in it. But that, in the end, if you look at the plan and who generates the plan, actually the planners in your organization are creating the plan. Even if you are running an ERP solution, at the end, your planner goes in and updates it and overrides this because he knows, or he or she knows, that oh yeah, our ERP doesn't know this factor, or our ERP solution doesn't know this, or our spreadsheets doesn't know this this factor that needs to be considered when we replenish this order, or this factory constraint. So it's, in a way, it's everything is still in your planner's head, and with this approach, you can only reach this Gartner stage 2 to 3 maturity. Where we support the organization is to complement this picture, which is, again, it's nothing wrong with the sales and operations planning. It's a very core process that cuts across many stakeholders within the organization and gives a good guidance in terms of your long-term planning. But it's not, if it's not complemented by a sales and operation execution level, it gives a misguided picture, because you need, and the way you can achieve that, and this is where this technology is moving, is to complement that with a detailed picture of your supply chain in terms of your capacity, as an example, in terms of your material constraints, support that decision making with advanced heuristics and machine learning and AI. And in the end, it's not the planner, it's the solution, in this case Adexa, creating the plan, whereas planner's job is to analyze the plan and take the proactive actions, rather than spending most of their time, do the calculations and create the plan, and having less time to analyze. And I have good case study towards the end on that one, in terms of planners being able to really work with a plan, rather than spend most of their time creating a plan. And that's the way you could, that's the only way you can reach as a company to a Gartner stage 5 maturity. So if there's one thing that we keep on repeating on our presentation, as well as today, is accurate plans require accurate models. So and without these accurate models, you won't be able to deliver risk resilient plans. And this word, supply chain risk resilience, is something that I think a lot of us have been hearing a lot with the recent 6 months since the COVID situation, in terms of the disruption to the supply chains. A lot of our customers faced it in terms of their not being able to, having orders but not being able to get the supply from their suppliers in China, looking for alternatives, and a great more focus on this topic. But the road to that goes also to be, in terms of building that accurate model. And how do we do that? How do we create an accurate and holistic representation of your supply chain? One topic we we believe is a key is in terms of creating a digital twin is our attributes. And these attributes can be actually anywhere in your supply chain. It can be a lot of people are familiar with them in terms of the finished goods related attributes related to their products, but these could be attributes to a configuration in your order, could be related to governmental specifications or shelf life specifications that are exposed to you that you need to continue and propagate across your supply chain. Could be on your manufacturing constraints, could be on your supplier matching. And we believe these help us if we work instead of just data with attributes. We can incorporate them into user-defined logics that can change over time and create an expert system. And they will help us in terms of modeling the system to your environment. And as the business changes, these attributes change with it too, rather than some companies building these hard-coded business rules into their planning. And in our experience, also this allows usage of attributes, drastically reduce the number of SKUs you would need, because at the end, I was just working with a crop seed company actually based in Europe. At the end, they're selling. I mean, they have a huge number of SKUs because of the packaging and the different specifics of their customers. But at the end, the crop itself is a certain variety. For example, a pepper. The crop is the same, but as they extend that to the order level, in terms of the packaging that needs to be, in terms of the treatments or checks, tests mainly, that seed needs to go in, you are looking to a drastic increase on SKUs. But in terms of the product that you need to plan is still that pepper variety seed. So there's good examples on that one that we will hopefully maybe in a follow-up session come back to it. I know from time-wise, again, just on the technology side, as we move to this sales and operation to sales and execution solutions, we do cover as Adexa a number of areas, like from demand planning to inventory optimization at a more long-term planning horizons down to global supply planning and down to factory shop floor planning and scheduling level. And the key is that we have one system that we build up with our own R&D without acquisitions on one unified data model supported with deep analytics and dashboards. So and that's where we believe is the future to get you and your customers to this stage 5 level of supply chain maturity. All right. Sorry if I took a little bit longer, Prabhat.
That's okay, Amre. I think we have a couple of questions. It makes sense to take them here.
Okay.
I'll take one by one. So one is one question is about how to explore S&OE digitalization. Can you throw some light on this, Emre? Right.
So I think the key is, again, depends on a little bit on your business and the industry. But the key aspects are, if you look into sales and operation execution planning, you are looking for a 3-month horizon. So you have the you need to have the granularity in your planning to be able to not just plan your forecast, but also your orders. And these orders can have different, depending on your industry, different configuration attributes. And then the approach would be to see, okay, again, depending on if it's a make-to-order product or a make-to-stock, etc. But okay, what is it that, how is my supply chain in terms of what's the level of granularity I'm modeling my supply chain to be able to really address that order level planning in terms of, confirm the delivery dates or address to changes of my supply chain. If my, like on the example, my supplier component I'm looking, I'm expecting delivery from says he has delays. So to be able to see what is the effect of that change on my supply chain to my orders, my delivery performance, and being able to do this kind of what if analysis.
Okay. There are two interesting questions. One is, how does Adexa planning consider unscheduled breakdowns and optimize the performance?
Unscheduled breakdowns, right? So that is that's very typical, and maybe on a different session we will be able to even demo that to the audience. But basically, if there is some breakdowns, right? So you have there you need to. What we do is we are modeling all the alternative resources or capacity options. So there are either there are alternatives that can be used. If there are at the end, it's a full constraint picture in terms of if there's no possibility to offload that demand to different equipment, to different sourcing, etc., then you will be then looking in terms of, okay, so first piece is try to help the planner in terms of what could be the alternatives to address it with alternative resources, alternative outsourcing, etc., if those options are possible. If not, something needs to, you are constrained, right? Some of those deliveries you are not going to be able to meet. Then the decision making becomes which ones, which demand are you going to be able to meet with, or are not? You're not going to be able to meet with that breakdown in the in your equipment, and to find the right one in terms of still to keep most of your promises and provide the visibility to your customers in terms of where the next commitment will be. That's how we can support them.
Yeah, understood. There is a quick one. How can we address future business in our plan of same types of product category? If I'm getting it right, it means that how we can forecast, future businesses.
Right. Right. That's very typical, like products groups and as such. So on that one, there is, I mean, if we go into forecasting, if it was related to the forecasting, what we do is you will have demand profiles basically in terms of, and you will have typically you have the functionality or view of, okay, this is a known product. For example, that I mean, I have a long-time customer here, a brewery, and they introduce certain products in every year in terms of their product. And what we do with them is they can identify these are the like products. Okay, this is, and from there that connotation we create for these new products sort of a pseudo history that can be the basis for an analysis. And I mean, there's further discussions or functionality in terms of cannibalization, how launch curves for the new products we can introduce to it. But typically, the idea is you use the demand profiles from other like products to create a profile for this new one.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we have 5 minutes of schedule time left, but I'm sure we'll venture more into the over time, but that's okay. Shall I continue with your presentation, Emre? Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, I mean, because anyway, I'll be handing it over back to you in the case.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think essentially how this comes, this all what Emre just explained beautifully is how we bring this into action. And this slide, talks about this thing. There is a standard implementation methodology, and it's been a tested method. I mean, Adexa is in the place for almost 25, 26 odd years, and with that, if you improve, you map the process improvement aspect of the entire implementation methodology. It becomes a very solid holistic method to improve the processes, as well as bring it to the next level of the maturity as we saw it. So the process typically starts with a diagnostic, which is outside the framework of the Adexa. So anyway, I mean, if you are, whether any tool or any technology that you are going to talk about, this is the first step where you actually first assess the overall process, overall function, and the pain areas. You identify those, and then you figure out which one is the best one. I mean, do I need the end-to-end supply chain solution now, or I need a demand planner or a network optimization kind of a intervention? Then you get into the project initiation, where you very clearly define project scopes, project charter, and timelines and resources. Post that, I mean, once the charter is signed and all the stakeholders agree on the future course of action and the way we are going to attack it, then you get into the design, development, testing, and acceptance, which is basically the cutover, where we actually hand it over to the client, and eventually the adaptation. So adaptation essentially means a replication, as well as from a pilot stage it moved to the larger entire organization, or maybe the entire geographical spread kind of mode. So basically the idea with this methodology is to ensure on time, on budget, and successful deployment. So I mean, all thoughts and all technologies are good unless they are implemented and tested by people who are actually running the show. So it's very important to have a methodology in place, and that's where this comes into the picture. Emre, if you can please move to the next slide. Yeah, like Manish explained earlier, and just to set the context of the entire thing, where the technology and the a beautiful product comes into the picture, is about creating the material and information flow, where the lean thinking principles we've been talking over a long time comes into the picture. However, with the help of a very strong decision making tool, it gives you a complete visibility of the flows, as well as gives you insights to act upon. And that's where the lean supply chain 4.0 concepts comes into the picture. And the idea basically is to enhance the overall process. It's not only about, say, making the job of a planner easier, but the supply chain or a procurement guy is still struggling. No, that will not help the organization in any case. So it may give you a very short benefit in the short term, but not the overall the value that you could actually realize with the help of a very sophisticated and very practical tool. So idea is basically to look at it holistically. Next slide, Emre, please. Some of the key benefits that we've experienced and we've seen clients across the globe realize because of this are along the following dimensions. And some of the key metrics which typically are used in measuring the success of a supply chain or a successful supply chain function is delivery performance, which is basically the customer delivery, kind of inventory you hold, asset utilization, planning cycle time, forecasting accuracy, one of the most important metric, and manufacturing cycle time. With the help of this tool, we have seen, and it's very important that unless we actually do it, we can not experience the kind of benefit we can do. But there are limitless possibilities along these metrics that can be realized with the help of supply chain digitalization if you do it in the right way. I mean, you can invest a lot of money without actually getting any kind of benefit if you don't do it in the right way. So it's very, very important to have an end-to-end as well as holistic visibility about it all. So this was a quick summary of the kind of benefits. We are just nearing to the end of the session. Still, I would request Emre to give a quick overview of a case that he has practically delivered on his own. If Emre, you would like to
Sure.
give audiences a feel about the kind of projects you have done, and it will not take more than 3 to 4 minutes, I believe. So audiences, if you
Right.
just can stay
I
with
think
us.
exactly. I think that's that will be good. Just to maybe we talked a lot of. I mean, I mentioned examples along the way, but it's always to
Sure.
also see concrete case studies. So one, I mean, we have a couple more. I mean, I think we had a couple, but just due to the limitation of time, I'll go with one. It's an interesting one. It's a brand a lot of you may recognize, Seagate. They're one of the top hard drive manufacturers around the world, and again, I mean, obviously they are a fairly big company with 5 business units with a lot of locations and parts and methods, and I'm showcasing this. Why we think this is important is, on one sense, to show how interconnected the businesses are today, and it's a very good example in terms of their supply chain. It's not, I mean, I think this is a good picture to show you, the audience, how today the supply chains are interconnected as well. You could have one part of your supply chain getting wafers in Ireland to Thailand, China. In terms of, this is the case in terms of creating the hard drive, and then that goes into assembly lines in China as well as Thailand for different end products and business users. Components in terms of the chips needed, they come from a totally different supply chain into this assembly lines, and then again, depending on the business end consumer on end customers, which could be like what they have is consumer, as well as obviously all the hardware, server, etc. manufacturers around the world using their hard drives. They have different needs and complexity in terms of the response times, etc., and commitments they have. The key point we like to show this complexity is, today, you may be focusing, you may think, okay, I have one, manufacturing site and one distribution center, and I ship it from there to my customers. That's what you believe, but you are still connected to your suppliers, who has certain or potentially outsourced part of your products or semi-finished products. So there is today's business that local linear supply chain doesn't exist anymore. So there's complexities that you need to model, you need to be aware of as you are doing your planning. On Seagate's case, obviously that's extra huge, maybe to highlight, but that's the kind of, as Adexa, that's kind of problems we are used to solve. And I also like to use this one. I don't know if there are any mid-sized companies on the call, but when we talk with mid-sized companies as well and compare that to problems of bigger customers we have, actually the problems itself are not fairly different. It's the same, but the mid-sized companies have to, don't have the resources, obviously, but they have to be much more efficient in terms of how they solve those planning problems. And so we like to help not just big size customers, but also mid customers on their journeys. Coming back to Seagate, I think, I'll very quickly, a lot of these challenges and issues in terms of scalability in their case is common. Reaching communication with their suppliers, I think, is a common problem across the board. Cultural changes, I think that's something as you get onto these journeys of implementations and process changes, you will see that you need to address a number of cultural changes as well in terms of your planning. Executable plan. This was something that I mentioned early on in the presentation as well, but it's a key topic. You know, we believe if you don't have that accurate modeling, and you won't be able to reach an executable plan, and without an executable plan, you're still at a high level of planning, and to be able to provide your daily production and you know, shipping orders. So we certainly on Seagate case, we have addressed different parts of their supply chain and give them the overall end-to-end supply chain visibility. But I think the key key aspects that comes again highlighted from different. These are the three business areas. If we split the end-to-end pieces, I think there's like 3 business units underneath this in terms of mainly the business for supporting the hardware manufacturers in terms of the computers or the servers. The consumer business, this is their direct business with the consumers selling their hard drives to via Amazon or other retailers or wholesalers to their customers and consumers. And then the silicon is the piece in terms of the chips needed that goes into the hard drives. So if you look across these different, and you could think they could be 3 different companies on its own. In Seagate's case, these are all combined in one company. But the common theme again is an executable plan, improvement on time delivery and preserving the commitments, and being able to do what if capability. If you look at, and you know, obviously for them it's important to be able to create plans in fast fashion so that they can replan, and with this what if capability, we are not looking in terms of routing the whole plan, but parts of the plan based on the changes to their supply chain. So what are the key results achieved? Maybe to conclude, improved efficiency, reduced the planning process by up to 50%. This is, I think I have even an anecdote on this one. One thing email we got from them after the implementation was how thankful the planners were actually after Adexa was introduced, because now instead of doing overtime and staying late at work to try to create and finish the creation of the plan, they could go back home at a reasonable time and spend more time rather than creating the plan, actually analyzing the plan and making enhancement to it, rather than doing all these working on these manual interventions.
Yeah, real value added work instead of more repetitive and manual work. I agree. Yeah.
Right. And then it continues, obviously, accuracy of plan improved, capturing 50% more demand upsides, because now that they have a better visibility and accurate representation of their supply chain, they see based on the mix how much capacity, how much maneuver room they have in their supply chain. It's not these high-level plans we are talking about, right? That doesn't really give you the visibility or real representation of capacity or constraints you have in your supply chain, and that allowed them to be able to react to those demand upsides. And obviously, reduction in inventory was a key aspect, because they're making better use of available inventory with the better identifying the mispositioned inventory, optimal use of all existing components and finished goods before purchasing more components or before producing more. Increase capacity and component shortage visibility, and something also that we highlighted at the beginning, pinpointing the root causes impacting the on-time delivery. So they have the full visibility in terms of what's the root cause of the issues on their supply chain. Is it a certain subcon? Is it a certain manufacturing area? And how could they respond to that in a fast manner? So I think in a very quick version, that's maybe the highlights from this one.
So Emre, there are a couple of questions which are there, and I think it's important that we address them. So the first question is, I'll read it out. Often we find a scenario that planner tends to plan for overproduction or overstock because of non-reliable manufacturing operations or contractor supplies.
Right.
Does Adexa help in making optimum batch size decision considering constraints? I think the answer is yes, but you can elaborate further.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's a very typical problem, and that's the whole every stage, and that kind of a problem can happen at every stage of the organization and the supply chain. Everybody putting some more buffer because they don't have visibility and commitment in terms of what is really possible. If what we enable and we see with our customers with that with that accurate representation of your supply chain, you don't where the issues are, and when you have changes in the demand and the mix when the orders come in, where the problems could be and how that decreases, rather than trying to put these overproduction for keeping inventory, etc. Because also again, it depends a little bit on the business, but even for the for the make to stock type of businesses, typical is to keep your service levels with your customers. You try, it's typical to keep inventories high because you don't have the visibility in terms of when you are making those inventory halting decisions, the optimization, like on a multi-HL inventory optimization, to that looks all the constraints, the lead time variabilities with demand as well as on supply side to really mathematically optimal recommendation to you where to keep. Does it in the intermediate products you should keep the inventory versus your central DC versus local DCs? That is the kind of help you would need to address that.
And that is where I believe, Emre, that the algorithm of learning model and artificial intelligence will come into play, which will keep on optimizing your batch sizes and inventories.
That's right.
Second question is also very interesting. This is on B2C side in India with low tech penetration. What are the possible solutions? So I think before you answer to that, Emre, let me respond first level.
Sure.
That means low tech penetration means you are probably at a level 1 or level 2 of the maturity continuum. Now, nobody says that you can jump from level 1 or 2 maturity to level 5 straight away. It's a journey. So what Adexa will provide is after the diagnostic, we will have a business, the planning, the solution planning session, and in which we will be able to put up a appropriate model, because Adexa solver has got modules as well as it is scalable. So that is how the implementation planning will be done. What is appropriate for your business? You don't have to really implement a complete suite. Maybe Amre, you can elaborate further, please.
Right. I mean, I think as you said, you can't, you can't run before you walk, right? So you have to start walking. I think we all agree on that. I know it's a little bit of a standard, maybe the answer, but I think the key, the only piece I would add is, we help a lot of customers moving from that level 1 journey on. What I will caution is, especially if you are in a low, maturity level, still today you are there, but your business is growing, or you have the needs. Think long term. Think the end picture that you want to be at in a long term, and rather than investing time and effort to, let's say, a point solution that addresses part of your problem, and we see that a lot, and put the foundations of a roadmap that gets you to that level 5 maturity. So that will be, I think, my high-level recommendation without knowing the specifics. Nobody is gonna be able to get you from level 1, level 2, or low tech penetration to a very fast planning cycle and processes. But if you make the plan, long-term plan and start and build up with a foundation and a partner that could get you to that long-term plan rather than just gets you from level 1 to level 2 or level 3. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, I think that's a good way to go about. So there are no questions that.
Okay, yeah, I think we've overshoot the time, but it's important that we cover critical things, and we were able to answer all the questions as well. Yeah, so thank you, Emre.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the interactive session today.
So thank you all the participants, and we are looking forward for a very fruitful journey of supply chain evolution in India, and a key role which Kognoz and Adexa will like to play in that evolution and support the clients. So please get in touch with us if you have any need, and we can do a more in-house session for you for your specific problem. We can do a little bit diagnostic, a little bit more suggestions on that. So stay in touch, and thank you very much for today's time.
Thank you everybody.
Bye-bye.
We end now.
Yeah.
Thank you.